The forest of Eldergrove stood at the edge of Willowmere village, a sprawling expanse of ancient oaks and whispering pines that seemed to hold secrets older than time itself. To the villagers, it was a place of beauty and dread, a realm where children were forbidden to wander and adults spoke of only in hushed tones. Tales of vanishing travelers, ghostly lights, and strange melodies drifting from its depths had woven a tapestry of fear over generations. Yet, for 17-year-old Elara Wren, the woods were a siren's call, beckoning her with promises of answers to questions she couldn't yet name. Elara had always been different. Her copper hair and emerald eyes set her apart in a village of muted browns and grays, and her dreams were filled with visions of a silver tree glowing under a starless sky. Her mother, Mara, a weaver with hands as steady as her voice was stern, warned her against the woods. "There's nothing for you there but trouble," she'd say, her eyes darting to the forest's edge. But Elara's father, who had disappeared into those same woods when she was 5, had left her a single memento, a carved wooden pendant shaped like a crescent moon. She wore it always, a silent tether to the man she barely remembered and the mystery of his fate. One crisp autumn evening, as the sun bled orange across the horizon, Elara stood at the forest's edge, her heart pounding. The village was abuzz with preparations for the harvest festival, but she felt no pull toward the laughter and lanterns. Instead, her gaze was fixed on the woods, where a faint, silvery light flickered between the trees. It was the light from her dreams, she was certain. Clutching the pendant, she took a step forward, then another, until the village faded behind her and the forest swallowed her whole. The air inside was cool and heavy, scented with moss and earth. The trees loomed like silent sentinels, their branches knitting a canopy that dimmed the fading daylight. Elara's boots crunched over fallen leaves as she followed the elusive light, which seemed to dance just out of reach. She called out softly, "Hello, is anyone there?" Her voice echoed, unanswered, but the light pulsed brighter, urging her deeper. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time felt slippery in the woods. The light led her to a clearing where a tree stood alone, its bark shimmering like molten silver. It was the tree from her dreams, radiant and otherworldly, its branches heavy with crystalline leaves that chimed softly in the breeze. At its base lay a stone tablet inscribed with symbols Elara didn't recognize, though they stirred a strange familiarity in her chest. She knelt, tracing the carvings with her fingers, when a voice, soft as a sigh, spoke behind her. "You've come at last." Elara spun around, her breath catching. A figure stood at the clearing's edge, cloaked in mist. As the mist parted, she saw a woman with hair like moonlight and eyes that mirrored her own. "Who are you?" Elara asked, her voice trembling. "I am Silvara, keeper of the Heartwood," the woman said. "And you, Elara Wren, are the last of the Sylvan bloodline, born to restore what was broken." Elara's mind reeled. "I don't understand. I'm just me. A villager." "My father." "Your father was no mere villager," Silvara interrupted. "He was a guardian, sworn to protect the Heartwood, the source of the forest's magic. When he ventured here 12 years ago, he sought to mend the rift caused by human greed, but he was betrayed. His fate is bound to the woods, and now, so is yours." Elara's pendant grew warm against her skin. "Is he alive?" she whispered. Silvara's gaze softened. "He lives, but not as you know life. The Heartwood holds him, as it holds all who fall to its curse. Only you can free him and the forest by facing the trials ahead." "What trials?" Elara asked, fear and determination warring within her. Silvara gestured to the stone tablet. "The Heartwood's power was stolen long ago by a man named Corin, a sorcerer who sought to wield its magic for himself. He shattered the Heartstone, scattering its fragments across the woods. The forest has withered ever since, and those who enter are trapped in its grief. To restore balance, you must find the 3 fragments and reforge the Heartstone. But beware, Corin's shadow lingers, and the woods will test your heart, mind, and soul." Elara swallowed hard. "Why me?" "Because your blood sings with the forest's song," Silvara said. "And because you chose to answer its call." Before Elara could ask more, Silvara dissolved into mist, leaving her alone with the silver tree. The tablet glowed faintly, and a path of luminescent moss unfurled from the clearing, winding deeper into the woods. Elara took a deep breath, her father's pendant a steady weight around her neck. She had no map, no weapons, only her courage and the strange pull in her chest. She stepped onto the path. The first trial came swiftly. The moss led her to a ravine spanned by a rickety rope bridge, its planks rotting and swaying in the wind. Across the chasm, a shard of crystal gleamed on a pedestal, its light pulsing like a heartbeat. But as Elara approached, the air grew thick with whispers, voices that sounded like her mother, her friends, even herself. "You'll fail," they hissed. "You're too weak, too small. Turn back." Elara's hands shook as she gripped the ropes. The voices clawed at her doubts, amplifying every fear she'd ever buried. She thought of her mother's warnings, the villagers' pitying glances after her father vanished. Maybe they were right. Maybe she was foolish to think she could succeed where he had failed. But then she felt the pendant's warmth, a reminder of her father's love. "I'm not turning back," she said aloud, her voice cutting through the whispers. She stepped onto the bridge, ignoring the creaks and sways, her eyes fixed on the shard. The voices grew louder, but she focused on her breathing, each step a defiance of her fear. When she reached the pedestal, the whispers fell silent, and the shard floated into her hand, cool and thrumming with energy. One fragment down, two to go. The path led her next to a lake, its surface still as glass, reflecting a sky of endless stars. The second shard rested on an island at the lake's center, accessible only by a series of stepping stones barely visible above the water. As Elara stepped onto the first stone, the lake rippled, and her reflection changed. It wasn't her face staring back, but her father's, his eyes filled with sorrow. "Elara," the reflection said, its voice achingly familiar. "Why do you risk yourself for me? I failed. Let me go." Tears stung Elara's eyes. "I can't," she said. "I need to know you're safe." The reflection shifted, showing her father trapped in vines, his face pale. "The woods will claim you too," it warned. "Save yourself." Elara's heart ached, but she sensed a trick. The woods were testing her resolve, using her love against her. "I'm not abandoning you," she said firmly, stepping to the next stone. With each step, the reflection showed her father in greater pain, pleading for her to turn back. She wanted to scream, to dive into the water and pull him free, but she forced herself to focus on the shard. When she reached the island, the reflection vanished, and the second shard was hers. She clutched it tightly, her chest heaving with sobs, but she felt stronger, as if her love had been forged into steel. The final trial awaited in a grove where the air shimmered with heat, though no fire burned. The third shard hovered above an altar, guarded by a figure cloaked in shadow. Corin, or what remained of him. His eyes glowed red, and his voice was a rasp of malice. "You dare challenge me, child? The heartwood is mine." "You stole its power," Elara said, her voice steady despite her fear. "It doesn't belong to you." Corin laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Power belongs to those who take it. Prove your worth, or join your father in oblivion." The ground trembled, and vines shot from the earth, lashing at Elara. She dodged, her reflexes honed by the trials, but the vines were relentless. Corin's shadow loomed larger, his presence a weight on her soul. "You're nothing," he sneered. "A girl playing at hero." Elara's anger flared. She thought of her father's sacrifice, her mother's quiet strength, the forest's pain. She wasn't nothing. She was Elara Wren, and she carried the wood's song in her blood. Clutching the two shards, she felt their energy surge through her, guiding her movements. She wove through the vines, her pendant glowing brighter with each step. When she reached the altar, she slammed the shards into place, and the third shard flew to join them, forming a single, radiant heartstone. Light erupted, blinding and pure. Corin's shadow screamed, dissolving into ash. The vines withered, and the grove stilled. Elara fell to her knees, exhausted but triumphant. The heartstone pulsed, and the silver tree in the clearing blazed with renewed life. The forest seemed to sigh, its grief lifting like mist. Silvara appeared, her form solid now. "You've done what few could," she said. "The heartwood is whole, and its curse is broken." "My father," Elara said, her voice raw. "Where is he?" Silvara pointed to the tree, where a figure emerged from the light. It was her father, older and weathered, but alive. Elara ran to him, throwing her arms around him as tears streamed down her face. "I thought I'd lost you," she whispered. "I'm here," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "You saved me, Elara. You saved us all." The forest parted, revealing a path back to Willowmere. Elara and her father walked hand in hand, the heartstone's light fading behind them. When they reached the village, dawn was breaking, and Mara stood at the edge, her face a mix of fear and hope. She rushed to them, enveloping them in a fierce embrace. The villagers never fully understood what had happened, but they felt the change. The woods no longer whispered of danger, and the air was lighter, as if a weight had lifted. Elara's dreams of the silver tree ceased, replaced by visions of open fields and clear skies. She kept the pendant, a reminder of her journey, and the forest became a place of wonder rather than fear. Years later, Elara would tell her own children the story of the woods, not as a warning, but as a testament to courage and love. And though she never saw Silvara again, she felt the forest's song in her heart,